So within here, I can apply my employees to specific departments. Now in here, I actually create all the different departments that will reside within here. By default, we have kitchen, restaurant, and management staff. All right, the different departments that way. And so within this, when you're setting up all your employees, you assign them to a department, then you can choose from any of these. If you do want to create additional ones, then by all means you can go in here and do that. Now on this, we also have report type as well. When you're generating a departmental report, what it will actually do is you can have multiple groups of employees, like job positions, for example, apply to different departments, and several of them to the same department. So what you can have, for example, let's say not so much my kitchen staff, let's say my wait staff, my restaurant staff. So this may be my busboys, my servers, and my bartenders. So I have those 3 job positions, all those employees that apply to it. And when I generate a departmental report, then under restaurant staff, I will actually get a total of those 3 departments all put together. The same applies to kitchen. If I have like my sous chef, and my dessert chef, and my prep chef, my prep people, and my dishwashers, for example, I can have different job positions for each of them, and they will all be clumped into kitchen staff. I'll get a total for each of those as well. Employee performance points, okay, you may recall within the front end, one of the things that you can apply within there is positive and negative performance points. So if, for example, Leslie is a waitress who spills soup on customers all the time and I keep having to give her negative points, then within here I can actually go through all the different records. You can see all the different things you can choose from on this, and along with this you can assign a weighted value for this. And then within the back office, or within the report system, there's actually a performance report that you can generate. And so I can take a look at Leslie's performance over the last 6 months, for example. All of these comments will be included within there and their total weighted value on that. Job position setup. So within all of these different employees and within the departments, we have job positions. So for example, Leslie and I are a pair of bartenders or a pair of cashiers. We'll say we're cashiers, for example. So in here we have a job position of cashiers. And along with this, the department description. So which department do we apply to? Right, we're part of the restaurant staff. Next we have here is security level for the job position. And in here you can apply a security level anywhere from 0 being the lowest up to 99 is the absolute highest. And by default, we generally, I'm just going to come down to this little flashlight for a moment and take a look. You'll see within here, we generally tend to clump things in terms of 25, 50, 75, and then 99 being the highest for our various job positions. Cashiers is one that I created myself. You can tell by the job POS code that's in there. All the 1000 series are the ones that came automatically with the system. 2000 is ones I've created myself. Along with this, I supplied a security level of 30, which means they're higher than waitstaff normal, but not as much as waitstaff managers. So in terms of their job level security and what things they can do on the system, that will be reflected within that as well. Right. Also for this, we have down below enforced declared cash tips as well. So on this, depending on your local tax laws pertaining to cash tips, if cash tip declaration is enforced or is required when you're doing employee cash outs, then what you can do is rather than rely on the employee to do that, then you can actually force it on them to do that. So first of all, we have by default do not enforce, which means within the your settings screen you will find that there is declare cash tips. You select on that and they rely on them to say, okay, I collected $20 in cash tips this shift, and I will be taxed on that appropriately by the government. Down below that we also have on cash out. So when you're performing a cash out, if you select on this, then the system will actually prompt you with a window that will pop up and say, what are you declaring for cash tips? And this will make sure that they actually enter something in there. They can put in $0 if need be, but they will have to put in some form of value and have that recorded across into as part of their cash out. We also have on clock out, because I may have employees that do not do transactions, so they will not be required to do a cash out. But obviously they clock in, they clock out, and there may be a need for cash tip declaration in that case. Bear in mind here, we work internationally, okay? PixelPoint is used around the world in virtually every country that I know of. And so that being said, there are many different tax laws pertaining to the enforcement of taxation of tips and so on. So where it may seem kind of illogical within your particular region, it may be commonplace in another person's. Do not send POS announcements. So I'm Scott the dishwasher. I clock in, I clock out. I don't care if the spaghetti is sold out or sold in. So you can select on that, in which case then everyone within this job position will be exempt from anything like sold out and sold in messages and so on. Coming over to advanced, on here we have first of all initial float. Now a float is your beginning cash. Okay, so if you are using server banking, for example, or some form of cash stores or something of that nature, then you can actually put within the system force on them to declare what their initial cash is, or have it with an assumption of what the value would be. So the first one here is don't prompt. Okay, so you know, if you're going to rely on your staff or your method of banking may not require it, then you would just leave it up to the staff to go into your settings and say, my initial float is $200. Okay, the $200 is my beginning cash in my drawer, and I use this for making change. The next one down is prompt. If I select on this, then when I first clock into the system, then the system it will actually ask me, what is your beginning cash on this? In which case, then I put in $200. Boom, there you go, and it carries on from there. And that will be recorded within my record, so that when I generate my cash out report, it will also reflect the fact that I had a beginning cash of $200 as well. Start with. So I'm Scott, the cafeteria cashier, and all the cafeteria cashiers begin with a $200 float every time. So if that is the case, then all you have to do is just put within here, start with, I can put in $200 within that value, and then so the employee will not be required to put in any of that information, nor will they be prompted, but the system will assume that they did begin with a $200 float. Coming over to the right-hand side, biometric authentication required. Okay, so within this, when you're doing anything pertaining to fingerprint recognition systems, remember that we interface with the M2Syst fingerprint recognition system. If you are interfaced with that, then actually you can set some things in here as well. First of all, in terms of clock in and clock out. Okay, so the system will require your fingerprint recognition in terms of validating your clocking in and clocking out of the system. Also, if breaks are applicable as well, then you can select on that. And if you want to go on a break or come off a break, it'll require your fingerprint as well. Coming down below that, employee cash out report. Leave blank if system default cash out. Now, the regular way a cash out works is as follows. I run my employee cash out, and the report that prints out shows that all of the transactions that I closed, these are the sales that I get credit for, and this is the money I'm responsible for. And that's fine and dandy. Now, suppose we're in an establishment where, for example, I am Scott the waiter, and Leslie is the cashier. So I open up the table, I handle all of your transaction, I print off the check, I present it to you, I smile, and I walk away. When you're ready to go, you take the check and you take it to the cashier. Now, Leslie, as the cashier, has her security levels within her job position will allow her to pick up my transaction. So she takes a look at the check, okay, check number 123, so she retrieves check number 123 up on her screen, and then from there she has now taken ownership of that transaction, and then she will cash it out. Now, under the conventional cash out report, she will get credit for all of that work that I did. So she gets credit for the sale, and she is responsible for the cash. Now, the problem is here, well, what did Scott do during this entire work shift? Because by all reckoning on this report, he didn't do anything. You can actually change this on a per job position basis to identify different cash out reports. And so within here, I go into, of course, POS. Where's my reports? Pixel reports. There we are. And within here, I've got a list of all my different reports. And within here, if I scroll down, I've got employee clock out reports and cash out reports. There's the cash out summary. Take a look at this one here. Employee cash out by who start. So, as the waiter, for example, I would want that report to generate for all of my wait staff. The reason being is that will identify that I started tables 1, 2, 3, and 4, and these are all the transactions I did for them. I don't have the cash because Leslie collected all of that. But what you should have is, by the end of the night, a report that shows that if Scott and Tom and Dick and Harry were the the 4 waiters and Leslie was the cashier, then if I take Tom, Dick, and Harry and Scott and add up their totals, it should match up with the number that Leslie put through on her till, and so everything balances out that way. So in essence, what you can do is you can just have different cashier reports based on a per job position basis. Coming down below that, percent of tip out received. Okay, now this has to do with tip pooling. Let's say within our establishment, for example, I take all of the cash tips for the night and I throw them into one big pot, we swish it around, then we count it out at the end of the night. And then from there, I will allocate it out so that the bartenders will get a certain amount, the cashiers will get a certain amount, the wait staff will get a certain amount, maybe the kitchen staff as well, and the busboys, who knows. And so on a per job position basis, you can put in here what their percentage of that total pot would be. Now, let's say just for the sake of simple math, it was $100 in tips. And so of this, I have within here, let's say 10%. Okay, so that means my cashiers are going to get 10% of all of the tips that were done for the night. So $10 will go to my cashiers. Now, of my cashiers, I have 2 cashiers. There's Leslie and Scott. Leslie was working tonight, Scott was not. So Leslie will get 100% of that 10%, and Scott will get none. The way the system works is that it calculates, first of all, the percentage of tip out received from that total pot, and then from there it breaks it down to all the people within that job position and the hours that they worked within that shift to reflect on what their portion will be from that. So there is actually a back office report, a tip out report, and from there it breaks it down first of all by job position, as this field reflects here, and then from there by the hours worked of each individual. Now, if for example Leslie worked 8 hours and I worked 2 hours, she gets 80% of that $10. I get 20% of that $10. So I get $2, she gets $8. So it reflects across that way. Also, we have down below that shift rules as well. So shift rules on a per job position basis. I think it's pretty self-explanatory now. And then finally, we have minimum pay rate and maximum pay rate. When you're setting, you set this up within the back office. So if I, for example, have a hire manager who can handle the back office stuff, setting up all this, then they can set up in terms of what the minimum pay rate and maximum pay rate will be allowed for anyone within a cashier position. If I have another manager who's just a little step down from there, he can actually create the employees and put them on the system. Then when programming in an employee and putting in the pay rate has to fall within whatever I've set within the job position fields within here. If it does not, then the system will say you're out of range and you have to either offer them a little less or offer them a little bit more to make sure it's within that reasonable range of pay for that. Okay, so that is job position. So what I'm going to do right now, we're just past the halfway mark within our presentation, and we've worked our way down. We've done pretty good here. So we're down to job positions. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up after the break with the security level set up. So right now we're 5 minutes after 2 my local time. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. I'll see you in 5, and then we'll pick up where we left off. Thank you.